please join me and Cantor Gutman there at 10 a.m. Sunday morning. It is my privilege and pleasure to invite back to the Bima our Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Philip Bregman, to share with us some words of Torah this morning.
How beautiful or wonderful it is to be here in the midst of this incredible congregation, these high holy days, the tone, the mood that has been set by the Klei Kodesh and by all. Really, Yesher Koyach, and thank you. And I have to tell you something. It's really a lot more fun sitting over there than sitting up here. And had I known that 33 years ago, I would have been conducting the services from over there and just on call them. I understand. By the way, this is what the next 55 minutes is going to be like. What do you think, I'm coming up here for 5 minutes? Listen. You know, I look out here and what do I see? Well, first of all, I see my family doctor. I see my gastroenterologist, and I see my ophthalmologist. And Dan, the name is Saul Isero. If you could get him to join the shul, I'd really... He's my cardiologist, anyway. And of course, my psychiatrist over there, my wife, so... Some of you may very well have been present on a Sunday night up at my other neck of the woods, up at UBC at the Chan Center, for the opening of the Federation campaign. And I must tell you, I've attended many of these events. I honestly believe that the tone, the mood, the speaker in particular, was one of the best speakers we've ever had in this community. He's an actor by the name of Joshua Malina. Now, you may have seen him from West Wing. He's now on Scandal, the program. I don't know what shul he's a member of. That's another scandal. But in any event, phenomenal individual. And he's a yeshiva bucher. I mean, he's got to be great because he's from New Rochelle, New York, which is the gig that I had before coming to Vancouver. And there, Chris Friedrich is raising his hand, another former New Rochelleite or something. And he went to Westchester Day School, which was an Orthodox day school. He has a solid background. And he's funny, he's poignant and everything else. But one of the things is relation to Rosh Hashanah. I'll relate to you something that he said, which was very funny. He got his break, really, because he happened to have known Aaron Sorkin growing up and so on. And Sorkin was the creator and producer of, writer of a lot of The West Wing. And Sorkin gave him a role in The West Wing, and their first day of production was second day Rosh Hashanah. So he phones up the associate producer, who happens to be Jewish, and said, I hate to make waves, but the first day of production is second day Rosh Hashanah. I can't be there. And the associate producer said, there's a second day of Rosh Hashanah? Anyway, I am absolutely thrilled to be here and talking to you because you are the perfect demographic for me. Individuals who had nothing better to do than to be here on second day Rosh Hashanah. So, we're going to have a conversation. And the conversation is going to be something that all too often we do not discuss or share. And this conversation is going to be a sharing about what you believe. And I will tell you and share with you aspects about what I believe. And we have our own Phil Donahue here. Where's Rochelle? okay? So she has a mic and go back and forth so that if you want to say something, put up your hand and she'll get there so that other people can hear what's going on. Now, according to philosophy, there are basically three major categories when it comes to belief. There are theists. Theists are individuals who, by and large, on a scale of 1 to 10, probably find themselves at 7.5, 8 and above in the belief that there is a higher power. I'm a theist. And we'll talk about that. Then there are groups, a group called agnostic. Now, the agnostics are individuals who are just not sure, who are searching. And on that scale of 1 to 10 of belief are probably 5 and below. These are my categories. And then there are the atheists, who, as sure as the theists believe that there is something, are as sure that there is nothing, no thing, in terms of a higher power. So I'd like to ask, if you're comfortable, first of all, who amongst us are theists? Interesting. Okay, looking at the rabbis. Okay, look, I gave you 3 categories. You can't go like this on the first one. Okay? All right, you're so Jewish. Okay, agnostics. Any agnostics here? Okay, good. Are there any atheists here? Okay, you are the best, the atheists. Okay, so let me ask, if I can, why are you here? This is an important question. I'm sure you will. Avi, why are you here?
I'm here primarily because it's a sense of community,
Aha.
and it's a sense of belonging. For me, going to shul is the community.
Okay. We had, did you hear that? Really? Okay. Well, my ENT guy's not here, so I can't help you. Anyway, any other atheists want to? Same. Okay, so sense of community. I remember I was trying to calculate it out. It was relatively early in 1970. I had written the application. I had taken the Minnesota multiphasic personality test. I had written the GREs. And now I was on my way down to the holy city of Cincinnati to have an interview to become a rabbinical student. I think it was February or March of 1970. Also, once you finish having your set of interviews, you then meet with the school psychiatrist. I can't share with you all of the apocryphal stories about that, but, well, I will, but not here. But I thought originally was to find out if you're sane enough to be a rabbi. What I quickly discovered, it was to find out whether or not you're crazy enough to be a rabbi. And I passed. They asked me all sorts of, quite honestly, inane questions. The one that I remember was, would I be the rabbi in Goodbye Columbus? You remember the movie, Goodbye Columbus? Philip Roth. There was the book and then the movie and everything else. And I had no idea what they were asking until one of them said, oh, wait a second, he's a Canadian. Why are we asking this? They had no idea who they were talking to. Another one asked me what my draft number was. You see, in 1970, the clergy were still
one of those professions that was not being hit by the Vietnam draft. I didn't know that until in my first year as a rabbinical student in Israel, when all of a sudden somebody no longer was in class, not just that day, but ever, because they had turned 26, no longer eligible for the draft, and quickly said goodbye to Hebrew Union College. They were using it as a dodge. Okay, whatever. But at the end of this interview process, they turned to me and said, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "Yes." "What?" "I'm quite fascinated as to what you didn't ask me." "What didn't we ask you?" "You didn't ask me whether or not I believe in God." "Oh, is that important?" "Well, it is for me, and I'm a little shocked that it isn't for you." So we got into a whole discussion about that. I think things may have changed since 1970 at the college. But it wasn't something that we also discussed a great deal of, except from a rather academic point of view. And that isn't particularly helpful when you're going to go into the congregational rabbinate. You need mamash, you need to have discussion about the good, the bad, and the ugly. About God. About your relationship with God. About what you think that relationship is about. And how you understand it. And for me, as Rabbi Moskowitz said, this time is a time of sort of resetting and rethinking. And for me, the High Holy Day was always a time when I would sort of try and oh, that's mine, thank you. So try to remember, I know, try to remember where I was in a previous year in my relationship with God and where I am now. Because it's not static for me. It's dynamic. And like the words of the Greek philosopher Heraclitus that said you can never step into the same river twice because it's always flowing, for me it's a hope that I don't have a stale relationship with God, but it's a dynamic one. And I should tell you, there's a lot that I do not understand. And for me, at a certain point, whether it's going to be in this world or the next, God has a lot to answer for to me. Because there are things I just don't understand. I understand, sort of, the terrible things that you and I do to each other because of imperfection. But I have tremendous struggle with things that happen to the innocents of the world, whether it be because of a volcano or an earthquake or a tsunami or what we call birth defects. War, again, I understand. That's because of our greed. That's because of our inability, as I understand it, to share. To share. You know, we need another, what was the name of that movie called American, where everybody came together because there was an outside force coming to invade the world? Independence Day. Right. Thank you. I sometimes think, you know, we need another type of thing. I mean, we're getting so crazy. War is not something that I struggle with in the sense of with relation to God. I struggle personally with that in relation to how you and I interact on the face of this earth. But I'd like to know where you are. And what gives you difficulty and what gives you comfort. So let me ask you with regard to prayer. What does it mean to you? We're sitting here yesterday, today, next weekend, putting in hours of time with a High Holy Day prayer book, words on a page, letters, concepts. What's prayer for you? Anyone?
Personal.
I'm sorry?
Personal.
It's personal. Okay, so tell me, what's for you? Are you okay to answer that?
Yeah, it's a bit scary. But I think it's something that you have to come to terms with to make it a
I'm sorry, can you not use the word you and use the word me or I? Ooh. If you're comfortable.
No,
now that I put the spotlight on you.
Oh no, I like this. I think I personally have been struggling with it for a really long time. To me, it seemed really, really scary. Like, I'm not sure what the Amida means, or am I doing it properly? And then when you take a step back and observe those thoughts, it's kind of like, this is a personal thing, and it's about how I feel and my love for other people and for God, as opposed to, am I doing this properly?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I can pretty much guarantee that there will be classes here in which those issues of what prayer is about and the words and the whole orchestration of it and where it came from, the etymology, and the, as I say, the orchestration, because it is a dance of sorts. And it's a brilliant one, if you know the steps or whatever. Just in terms of how it's laid out. It's not a hodgepodge. Because we call our prayer book a Siddur, which means there is an order to it as to how. And that order is pretty fixed, although within the thousands of years of Jewish life, we've altered it as well and continue to do so to this very day. Does God answer your prayers? First of all, do you pray to God to do something for you? No. No winning lottery ticket prayers here? Yes.
So just sort of want to tap on into the three kind of things that you've already asked everyone. So I think it's interesting when you grew up Jewish, you grew up coming to the synagogue, and it's part of the traditions. And when I was little, I just, assumed there was a God because you're praying to this man upstairs and
Did we ever tell you it was a man?
Yeah, when I was little, like, it was always the wording for him in the prayer book was him. And only recently
it was masculine.
Yeah, and then we started to bring in the imaot, and but as I got older and started to sort of see what's going on in the world, and it changed what I thought about, is there a God, and looking over us and taking care of things. And then now I'm at a place where I feel like we have all those decisions to make. So it's kind of like that power that we give to God is actually in us. So when I look at the prayers, going to the prayers now, for me it's part of community coming together, singing, hearing everyone's voices. But then all the words are reminders to me now, not to this person upstairs. So when you said, like, do you pray to God? I feel like we have to ask ourselves all those things.
Okay.
Because we're just giving the responsibility to someone else. So
you're taking the sense that prayer, and if I'm overstating this, tell me, starts inward and then possibly outward. But I don't know. Do you go outward afterwards? I mean, after you go in, does it go out?
Well, it's like you have to start in and then make those changes out to the people around you. And
okay. We pray for certain things. Petitionary prayer is a very, very important aspect of Jewish prayer. Generally not done on Yom Tovs and Shabbat. But nonetheless, it is there. And we do have some exceptions. And as the Torah was open close to the last Aliyah, we said a prayer for refuah. We said a prayer for health. Have you ever tracked in your head, in your mind, in your soul, what is going on, or what do you imagine is going on when we say Mishaberach Avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Rivka, and we say Rofei Tachol, to heal, and then we may put in a name? Anybody share with us what you think you're doing and what you think is actually happening by reciting those words? Yes?
We're trying to give ourselves power over something over which we have no power.
Okay, so as Adva said, you're going in first?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, yeah, okay. You're getting a lot of exercise on this. Does God have any part in the healing process? Yes? No? No. Okay. Anybody? Yes? Yeah?
Part of the that's the healing prayer group, and I'm not sure.
Put it up to your mouth.
I participate in the Chevra Tefillin,
right.
Say Mishaberach when we get announcements, and
right.
I'm not
By
sure.
the way, you're aware that we have a Chevra Tefillah, a group within the synagogue, individuals, I don't know how many of them, there are 40, 50, 60 individuals, every morning get up and say prayers, a Mishaberach for someone or someones that are put on a list. Go ahead.
And I'm not sure I believe that it does any good, but I tell people, Jewish and non-Jewish, that I participate in this activity and that I've said or am saying a prayer for them. And when I tell people, there is healing power in that act because they react with such gratitude and love, and I hope that that is a healing. So I believe in that, and that to me is the extension.
Fascinating. Brilliant.
Is the purpose.
So you're part of a healing group that you don't necessarily know if the words go, you're not even sure what the effect of words are, but the fact that you can say that you're part of that and share it with other individuals, you have proof, so to speak, of how that affects other individuals, giving them perhaps a sense of calm or a sense of belonging. Or a sense of a higher power that maybe you don't have, but someone else might. Right, right. Anyone else in terms of a Mishaberach for health? What? Yes, Dr. Paul.
Yeah, you asked if praying to God would help with healing. And in fact, I recall studies that have demonstrated that when there is prayer by a group for others, that group actually did have a positive response versus a group that wasn't being prayed for. And so what it is that we're doing is hard to really understand, whether it's going from us to God to the people, or whether there's something that we can't quite comprehend, an energy that's being created, and we maybe look at that as God. But they were decent studies, and they showed a positive outcome and change. So for anyone who's thinking about whether there is impact, there is science that shows there is.
Okay. I am not entirely sure, because it's not, for me, defined by rigid lines. I start in, and then I go out. And by praying for healing, I first of all am challenging myself, what can I do in the process? What's my role? In sending that message out to the Supreme Being, I'm also sending a message to the doctors, to the technicians, to the chemotherapy and the radiation and the surgery itself. I'm sending a message out. Now, of course, no is an answer. No is an answer. Not yet is an answer. And the older I got and get, I realized that despite the fact we live in a world of instantaneous, that we want to have push a button and it opens, push a button and we are connected. That's not the way it necessarily works in the world. And I may be walking down the street, I may be in my car, I may be in a certain particular situation. All of a sudden something happens and it becomes a phenomenal aha moment that the answer to something that I had asked or thought about 2 or 3 years ago has now appeared before me. Aha! I have been present, as I know certain medical people in this room have, and maybe many others have, at the actual instance of death of individuals. It is awesome. Nora. It is awesome. And as I told this congregation years ago, well, I didn't have the opportunity to be present when my father died. I actually held my mother in my arms with my sister when she died. And it was one of the most awesome moments for me, next to and including first witnessing the birth of our children. And I can tell you, as will my sister, who was really struggling as to whether or not she wanted to remain in the room, and I said to her, sweetie, you gotta believe me. Stay here. It will be okay. Mom was there when we were born. Let's be there when she transitions. Because to me, the word die or dead is too final. I do believe that the soul then exits. And there is an instantaneous sense of awe, and it has happened every time that I have been blessed to be present with a person who dies in front of me. There is this indiscernible moment of, wow. It's not simply 1 second after the next. There is something, for lack of better word, magical, as the soul leaves the body and continues on in its journey. I happened to come into the office the other day. Kathy Eisenmonlek was sitting there with a student, and they were going over the Gevurot prayer. And you're having a discussion with this particular student about the concept of Mechaye Meitim, who gives life to the dead. And she said, and I'm sure Rabbi Bregman has something to comment on that. When has anybody ever known me not taking an opportunity to comment on something? And sometimes I even know what the subject is, but And for me, because with the study group and John Silver and others, we reintroduced Mechayim Eitim into our Siddur many, many years ago because traditionally Reform had taken it out. They said, Mechayim Hakol, who gives life to all. No, I want to go back to the traditional Mechayim Eitim. Now, traditionally it meant resurrection, but I believe that it means much more than resurrection. How many here are named after someone who predeceased you? And we continue to do that. That for me is another instance of Mechayim Eitim. We are saying we're not only giving you that name, we want to also pass on some of that energy of that individual. And we pray that that individual will be with you because there is the continuity. And where I've seen individuals have been named, and if I know who they've been named after, it is unbelievable where people will say, my God, you should see this individual growing. It's if their Zeta, their Bubby, their great uncle, whatever it is, was alive today in this other person. It's more than just a name that has been passed on. There's an energy that goes with that as well. At this time of year, we believe in this concept. Do we not visit our cemeteries? And it doesn't matter, by the way, if your loved ones are buried in our cemetery or not, because for so many of us, our loved ones are not buried here in Vancouver. They're in Montreal, they're in Winnipeg, they're in Toronto. They had no burial spot because of the Shoah. You show up at our cemetery because you do not have to be in physical approximation to that matzeva, to that headstone or that grave. It's being there together. It's saying to our loved ones, help us as we go into this new year. Be there to continue to guide us. And I firmly believe that. The traditions are there to help us go in a certain direction, or give us some boundaries, or give us some type of starting point. But the traditions are not the be-all and end-all you and I are in our relationship with this God. Something else, and with this I'll conclude. And I was thinking about this a lot, amongst other things, this summer when the war was going on in Israel. And I was corrected because at one time I said to something, the war that was going on in Gaza, an Israeli said to me, excuse me, it's more than Gaza that's being affected here. This is a war in Israel where missiles are going up to Nahariya and they're going as far south, as close to Eilat and whatever. We've never seen a war like this where the entire country is under siege. And again, for me, it's, we will come out of this. We will come out of this. We will be battered. We will be bruised. We have important lessons to learn, as was discussed yesterday. We will come out of this. Why? Because God has a certain plan for Israel. And that plan is survival against all odds. Otherwise, my friends, it makes no sense that Israel still exists. It makes no sense that we exist on the face of this earth. We 14 million people of 7.5 billion people still here, despite all of the animosity and all of the wars and all of the energy that has been put into trying to destroy us. It cannot be sheer luck. It cannot be sheer intelligence on the part of Israel. If you go back and take a look at Israeli history, to me the biggest miracle was the War of Independence, which we won by the skin of our teeth. Who was part of the IDF when it became ultimately when it went from the Haganah into the IDF? A few people who knew what end of a rifle to shoot. But so many individuals had no idea. And I remember going through one of the military cemeteries, and this time looking for individuals who had come in 1948, had come in May, and their death was 2 or 3 days after they arrived. These were individuals who were coming released from Atlit, or released from Cyprus, or coming from God knows where in Europe, half starved to death, picked up a rifle. That was our army. There's no possible way in the world that we should have won that war in 1948. But we did. And if you take a look at and read the memoirs of Yitzhak Rabin, who was this close to having a complete and total nervous breakdown in '67, because he was the one that was going to give the signal to commit 85% of our Air Force to take out the Egyptian Air Force, and we were going to have to fly through the eye of the needle. And if we failed, it was the end of Israel, because we would have had no air support left. And Rabin will tell you, it was much more that day than the brilliance of our Air Force at play. And this from a secular Jew. We need to question. We need to discover what our covenantal relationship is with God. I am on the witness stand during these 10 days, as are you. I am being cross-examined these next 10 days by God, by myself, by my community. But I am also putting God on the witness stand during these 10 days, because God also has to answer. And that's what makes this relationship so dynamic, and at times so frustrating, but so alive. May we spend this next week searching, talking, discerning. And if we come to a conclusion that, yes, there is no God, may we still be here, so importantly as you are, giving strength to the community who is searching, as you add your strength to ours. Shana Tova.
Our service continues.